This past Saturday, Nora and I encountered heaven in the suiting section of the Brooks Brothers store in the Westchester Mall in White Plains, New York. We did. And this is how it happened. See, I've been invited to join an interfaith trip to Salt Lake City in a few weeks to learn about the humanitarian work of the Latter-day Saints Church and to imagine ways of collaborating together in social justice efforts. Now, as part of that trip, we will attend the Tabernacle Choir's Christmas concert. Exactly my reaction. Exactly. So I knew that I needed to represent us in style, and my wardrobe doesn't have anything that sort of meets at the intersections of PBS, gay apparel, winter temperatures, and semi-formal. So, off to the Brooks Brothers we went for their seasonal sale. And I took Nora with me for moral support, of course, and fashion guidance. Now, it's important to know that the last time we went to this store, I was in search of a bow tie to wear to a wedding that I was officiating. And I was met with visible disapproval and flat, rude behavior. The clerks made it very clear to me that I was not quite welcome there. They did not like that I shopped in the men's section. They did not like the generalized look of me, and they did not waste any time in letting me know. It was not pleasant. Now, this sometimes happens in a gender non-conforming shopping experience. It's not always easy. But Nora and I could not resist this sale. So, we girded our loins and off we went. And no sooner had we crossed the store's threshold than we were met with a smiling saleswoman. Hi there, exactly, Kay. Smiling and a woman. Hi there, she said. Do you know what you're looking for? Can I help you in any way? Now, I took a second. I looked at her. She seemed like a kind woman, a young Latina woman who didn't seem to be hiding any kind of subtext underneath this offer to help. Yes, I responded, I do. I'm looking for a semi-formal winter suit. Her face brightened, and she let us right in. Now, on our way to the women's section, I explained to her that I typically shop in the men's. She did not jeer, she did not raise an eyebrow. Rather, she graciously and quickly showed me the very small, drab selection of women's wear, and then moved us on to the giant and elaborate selection of men's suiting. We were surrounded by gorgeousness. Absolutely. Fabrics that made my heart go pitter-patter. Plaids and bird's eye weaves and blazers everywhere. Houndstooths, tweed, pinstripes, chalk stripes. AJ Bosco and I would have burst right there into flames. So many pretty things. Now, our helper and Nora found one that we all really loved. And so we went about the task of finding a starting size. Now, our helper assured me that the tailor was on site and could take it from there to get it, just right. With piles of size options, she whisked us to the back of the store to the dressing rooms. Which dressing room do you prefer? I almost cried at her thoughtfulness and lack of presumption. The women's is empty, she said, so we went there. I guess she figured that this was special for me, out of the ordinary, this purchase. So she asked us, what's this for? And before I could say anything, Nora interjected, she's a pastor! And before I could sort of soften this blow, our helper replied, then I'm honored to help you. I told her about the trip, and I told her about the concert and how it's going to be televised on PBS. And she called in the tailor, a very distinguished older black gentleman who was dressed to kill. Now, as he marked and pinned me up, we all chatted. Turns out faith is important to him too. He was raised in a Christian church, but he found his way to Islam, where he feels at home in that tradition. He said, "For me, it's not really about what church or mosque you go to. It's really about how you live and how you treat people." Nora and I told him, it's that way for us too. We four had the most lovely conversation back there in that otherwise empty dressing room. And we talked at length about faith, about the holidays, about our families, what makes a good look, and life in general. This tailor and I eventually figured out that we even have friends in common that go to his mosque. This really real connection happened. So very, very different from the typical retail experiences that we all have. The crew and Nora made sure at the end of it that I felt good in this suit. And I did. Success. Just wait for Christmas Eve. It's 3 pieces, Nancy. So our sales lady then checked us out, giving us a generous sale for each item. Now, the total was still steep, mind you, so I took a breath. And then she leaned in and said, "You know what? I'm going to add another 15% off." And she did. I mean, y'all, I am not making this up, and you can ask Nora. She handed me the receipt and told me that she'd see me at pickup. "I'm so glad you came in here today," she said. "Me too." I said it, and I meant it. And I turned to leave, and I stopped, and I walked back. "I'm sorry. I meant to ask, what's your name?" "Heaven." Oh my God! Nora and I walked out as if on clouds. I mean, sometimes God is so silly. I was in the process of writing this, of thinking about how God breaks into the ordinary places that we regularly inhabit, thinking about how heaven touches earth, how it happens in real time, in real space, just as God prepared the earth so long ago to receive her newborn king. I was in the midst of amassing beautiful and poignant devotionals written by our community members, all exploring the topic of how God comes to the places where we live our lives, where we eat, where we work, where we have fun, where we learn, and I added to the list where we even shop. I was thinking and reading and studying about all of that truth when, wham, we run smack into heaven at a Black Friday sale. Now, how utterly ironic and surprising, and somehow not. It was so sweet. It was so incredibly tender. So somehow exactly right. And I left that place. I was filled with hope. It was like my heart, my chest had to literally expand to make some room for all of that good stuff that took place right there. That holy, awesome connection. So this Advent, we'll spend some time preparing for Christ to come to the real places in which our lives are actually unfolding. And we'll think about how those places are hospitable and welcoming to the birth of love, to good news, or to great joy. And at the same time we do that, we'll make a place within ourselves into which Christ can come and find some room. We'll journey to Bethlehem, place to place to place, with as much specificity as we can, fighting against that familiarity of the stories, the default to allow those tales to exist in the extraordinary, in the otherworldly. God broke through way back then, but there, into a Nazareth home, a Bethlehem stable, a Jerusalem court, and the fields and the roads and the homes all in between. God got through to them, those regular people, there in those regular places. And if that is true, we can believe, we can trust, we can know that God can break in and show up for us here, right here in our world, in our places, in our lives. So let's keep thinking about the places we find ourselves in and how prepared they really are, and how prepared we are when we're in them for a heaven encounter. Artist, teacher, author, and conservationist Alan Gusso wrote about what makes a place a place. What makes a space turn into a place. And he put it simply. He said, the catalyst that converts any physical location, any environment, if you will, into a place is the process of experiencing deeply. A place is a piece of the whole environment that has been claimed by feelings. Viewed simply as a resource that sustains our humanity, the earth is a collection of places. We never speak, for example, of an environment we have known. It is always places we have known, places we recall. We're homesick for places. We're reminded of places. The sounds, the smells, the sights of places. This is how we measure our present. That rings true for me. And we can see the power and the meaning of place in both of these amazing scripture passages from today. Isaiah pleads with God, begging God, come down here. Burst through those clouds. Shake these mountains. He longs for God to be seen right where he is, and that is in the midst of exile after the takeover of Babylon. It was a time when the Israelites were homeless and they were dislocated. The temple had been destroyed and it hadn't been rebuilt yet. They were in between, in a space that was not yet a place. They were disconnected from where they were, and they were also disconnected from God. So Isaiah laments God's seeming absence and recalls past times when he knew God was right there, active, deeply engaged, doing those awesome deeds for those, as Isaiah puts it, who wait for God. It's God's presence and participation in those environments, in those places, that made them meaningful. The waiting that Isaiah talks about, well, it's done by those faithful ones back then, but it wasn't a kind of passive waiting. It's a waiting with purpose. It's a waiting with intention. It is a looking, a watching, and expecting that is animated by faith, animated by real, true, felt, engaged hope. Where the two forces of God's energies and our purposeful, hopeful engagement meet, space can become place. Something extraordinary can happen there. The mundane can become sacred, and we mark those experiences in our minds. We mark them with feeling and importance, meaning and memory. We don't soon forget running into God, do we? We know where it happens. Just like what Jacob does when it happens to him, when God appears to him in darkness while he waits in the middle of nowhere, beyond the named places and the mapped locations. Into this expanse, into this time of transition for him, God shows up. There's this great spiritual wrestling that's taking place within Jacob while he physically tussles with an angel. He has run away from home. He's stolen from his brother. He's tricked his way into a seeming good fortune. He's beyond himself, honestly. He's out there, alone, disconnected from his family, from everything he knows. And God comes, right there in the cover of night, in darkness, to see if Jacob can make some room for something new within him, something that's different. And he can, and he does. God gets right in there. I mean, arm in arm with Jacob, and Jacob gets right back in. He does not let go. He holds the heck on, needing that blessing. He needs a change. He's showing up, and he emerges from this encounter with heaven with a new name, a new identity, a new life. And just in case that name was like not enough to mark this kind of incredible experience, what does he do? He goes a step further. He marks the spot where it happens. He names it too. It becomes a place, Peniel, where I met God face to face. So special it was, so imbued with meaning. It became a place he didn't want to forget. The Benedictine abbess and mystic and philosopher St. Hildegard wrote, "We cannot live in a world that is interpreted for us by others. An interpreted world, it's not a hope. Part of the terror is to take back our own listening, to use our own voice, to see our own light." I take note of that, and I share it with you all today. At the start of this Advent for us all, let us live into our lives, interpret our experiences and our world, showing up fully where we are. We can't just look up at the heavens and plead for revelatory action from God when we haven't moved a spiritual muscle. But we can, in faith, in hope, engage, arm in arm, heart to heart, right where we are. We can wait and we can watch for the one who will come, who does come to us right here. Look around. There is plenty of room here. There is plenty of space here for hope, for joy, for love, even for peace to be born. So let's give those things priority of place in our lives. Prepare him room.